So we thought importing our car to Sweden would be easy. Fill in some forms, pay a fee, go to an inspection, done. Instead, they somehow registered a Volvo to our name, a car that we have never owned. We were not allowed to drive our car for weeks, we missed the window for our winter tires, and we had to call roadside assistance because our car literally stopped working because it was standing still too long. This is the episode where we learned nothing humbles you faster than car paperwork in a new country. Welcome to episode 7 of our 10-part series of our story moving abroad. We're sharing the full story, not just the highlights, also the messy middle parts where everything seems to go completely wrong. Today we're talking about importing our car to Sweden. Something we genuinely thought would be straightforward, but somehow turned into one of the most stressful admin sagas of our entire move. As always, this is just our experience. Rules can change, situations differ, but if you're already planning to import your car, this episode may save you some stress. And if you have any more questions, leave them in the comments. Because trust me, we have learned a lot. Let's start with the big question. Why didn't you just sell your car and buy a new one in Sweden? Short answer, because we love our car. But the longer answer actually starts before we moved to Sweden. Our old car was starting to have more and more issues. And at the same time, we were planning something pretty big. Our 4-month road trip to Sweden to start looking for a house. Standing still on the side of a random Swedish road with a broken car wasn't part of that dream. So we decided to buy a new car before leaving. Second-hand, but with only 11,000 kilometers on it. And honestly, it turned out to be my dream car. The funny part is, we thought we would be using it a lot during those 4 months. But we found the house way quicker than we expected. So the car barely got used. And by then, selling it was never an option. There was just no way that I was gonna give up my dream car. Now add Sweden into the mix. Cars here are generally more expensive. And buying one isn't as simple as just going to the dealership. You need a person number, bank ID, insurance. And at that point, we barely existed in the system yet. If we had sold our car, we would probably have been without one for months. And where we live, that's just not realistic. We can't get groceries delivered. We need a car for basic daily life. Renting long-term would have been expensive, so importing our car felt like the safest, smartest option. And honestly, even after everything that has gone wrong, we would do it all over again. We started the import process shortly after moving here in October. The plan in our head was simple. Apply, pay, wait a bit, get it inspected, done. We submitted the application and not long after, the first letter arrived. So far, so good. We paid for the origin check with transportstyrelsen. It was about 1200 kroner. Still thinking, okay, this is fine. Annoying, but fine. What we didn't realize at first is that we already made our first mistake. Because we originally sent a copy of our Dutch registration card. Turns out they don't want a copy, they want the actual original card. So we had to send it in by registered mail again. Which meant more waiting, more anxiety, and more time where absolutely nothing moved forward. Little did we know, we were just getting started. Here's something we didn't fully realize at first, and this one is important. Once you apply to import your car, you're basically not allowed to drive it anymore. Except to very specific appointments, like the inspection. This caught us completely off guard. Suddenly, our car, the thing we rely on for groceries, errands, life, was just sitting there. And where we live, that had real consequences. We had to do our groceries by walking to the closest little IKEA. That was about an hour and a half one way, so 3 hours of walking in total, with heavy backpacks filled with our groceries. And no, we can't get groceries delivered where we live. So this became our reality for a while. And this is where things can get a little confusing, so let's clarify. Your driver's license and your car are two separate things. If you have an EU driver's license, you're actually allowed to keep driving on it in Sweden as long as it's valid. If your license is from outside the EU, you can usually drive up to 1 year after becoming a resident. So our license, not the problem. The car was the problem. Once you register as a resident, you're expected to transition your car to Swedish registration fairly quickly. Officially, that window can be very short. Some sources even say around a week, even though enforcement isn't always super clear in practice. For us, that meant better safe than sorry. So our car just stood there. We also had to arrange temporary motor insurance, valid for 90 days. More paperwork, more waiting. All of this while we were still setting up our house, our lives, everything else. By early December, things started moving again. The application officially ran through. we received temporary registration plates. They were bright red and gave us some very confused looks. People could clearly not figure out what kind of plates they were or from what country. But honestly, we did not care because we could finally drive again. We thought, okay, worst part over. But no, because this is where things went from just annoying to genuinely surreal. Somewhere in mid-December we got registration papers in the mail, which was strange because our registration inspection was still scheduled for January. Even stranger, there was also a note saying we could pick up our official registration plates, the white ones, at the post office. So now we were confused. We opened them, looked at them, read them again. It said Volvo. We don't own a Volvo. We have never owned a Volvo. We own a Jeep. Somehow, and no one could explain why, the VIN number of our car had been mixed up with another one. Everyone we spoke to said, that's impossible. This has never happened before, or this shouldn't exist. Yet here we were, holding official paperwork for a car we did not own. Trying to explain this to different offices was very difficult, especially over the phone, and phone calls already give me a lot of anxiety. And to make it even better, the car is registered in my name, so I had to make all the phone calls. Eventually, the only way to fix it was to physically drive to the location where the Volvo had been inspected. Just to show them, this is our car, this is our VIN number, it's not a Volvo. It took time, a lot of phone calls, so much stress, but somehow they fixed it. In the beginning of January, we finally had our official registration inspection. This cost us about 3,000 kroners. The inspection itself, totally fine. The car passed without any issues. We got the registration papers that week. But even then, they did not say Jeep. They said other. At this point, we just laughed. Like, what can you do? Because the process took so long, our car had been standing still for weeks in very cold weather. We missed the window to install our winter tires, and when we finally were able to drive again, the car did not start. So yes, we had to call roadside assistance to help restart our car after importing it. At that point we decided never again. So we bought a start booster, just in case. And honestly, this thing already paid for itself. Because a few months later in spring, our ride-on lawnmower refused to start, and this booster saved the day. Eventually, on April 1st, yes, really, we received the final correct registration papers. This time it actually said Jeep. That was the real finish line. All in all, importing our car cost us about 4,500 kroners. More than we expected, a lot less than buying a new car, but definitely more stress than we planned for. Would we still do it again? Yes. Would we underestimate it again? Absolutely not. If you're planning to import a car to Sweden, this is what we would say. Read everything, then read it again. Double check all paperwork, even if it should be impossible to go wrong. Be prepared to not drive for a while. Expect delays. And don't panic when things get messy. Most problems do get solved eventually. It's frustrating, it's stressful, but it's doable. If you liked this episode, don't forget to subscribe and follow along. We're sharing our entire moving abroad story this December. And if you have any more questions, leave them in the comments, we read everything. Next time, in episode 8, we're breaking down the real costs of moving abroad. The expected expenses, the hidden ones, and the ones nobody tells you to budget for. See you on Friday!